Let's talk about coffee. Specifically, we're going to dive into a massive new study that looks at this really surprising link, the one between our daily cup of coffee and our mental health. And trust me, what the science is starting to tell us might just blow your mind.
You know the drill, right? You grab a coffee to get that jolt, to wake up and feel more alert. But what if that same cup was doing something totally unexpected? What if it could actually be lowering your risk for things like anxiety and depression? It's this exact paradox that's got scientists really intrigued.
So, to get some real answers, a team from Fudan University in China decided to go big. They dove into this huge health database called the UK Biobank, hoping to finally get to the bottom of this question once and for all.
And when I say big, I mean enormous. They followed nearly 500,000 people. Just think about that number for a second. That's what gives their findings so much statistical power. Now here's the really important part. Every single person in this study was in good mental health when it started. This gave the researchers a totally clean slate, you know? It let them see who, over time, might develop mental health conditions.
And this wasn't just some quick snapshot. Nope, they tracked these folks for a median of over 13 years. That's a long time. It gives a much clearer picture of how coffee habits might be connected to our health down the road.
Okay, so after all that time and all that data, what did they actually find? Well, the answer wasn't as simple as more is better or less is better. It was a lot more interesting than that. They found what scientists call a J-shaped relationship. It's a pretty cool concept, actually. It basically means that a little bit of something might be good for you, but too much of it can start to have the opposite effect. It creates this curve on a graph that, you guessed it, looks like the letter J. And this chart shows that J shape perfectly. Take a look. On the left, you've got people who drank zero coffee and they had a certain level of risk. But check out that dip in the middle. The folks who drank 2 to 3 cups a day had the lowest risk of developing depression or anxiety. But then, look what happens on the right. As you get up to 5 or more cups, the risk starts to creep back up. This is the big takeaway. There seems to be a real sweet spot.
And what's really wild is how consistent this was. It didn't matter if people were drinking fancy ground coffee, instant coffee, or even decaf. The J-shaped curve was still there. The study also pointed out something else interesting. These protective effects seem to be a little bit stronger for men than for women.
So all of this leads to the million-dollar question. Why? What on earth is going on in coffee that could have this kind of effect on our brains? Well, the researchers have a few ideas. The main theory is that it's not just about the caffeine. Coffee is absolutely packed with hundreds of other things, bioactive compounds like antioxidants and polyphenols. And the thinking is that some of this stuff might actually have a calming, anti-inflammatory effect on the very parts of our brain that control our mood and stress levels.
Okay, but before we all rush out to change our coffee habits, we have to do a little reality check. Like with any big study, we've got to be super clear about what this actually proves and what it doesn't. This is where we need to talk about 2 really important words in science.
So here's the bottom line. The study found a strong link and association between drinking 2 to 3 cups of coffee and having better mental health outcomes. But what it can't prove, at least not yet, is that the coffee causes the lower risk. It's a classic case of correlation, not causation.
And to their credit, the researchers were totally upfront about this. They pointed out that people only reported their coffee habits once, right at the start. And yeah, they tried to control for other things like exercise or income, but you can never completely rule out other lifestyle factors. Fun fact, they even looked at people's genes to see how they process caffeine, but that didn't really change the results either. So, keeping that reality check in mind, let's zoom out for a second. What does this research really mean for all of us, in the grand scheme of things? Why does this link matter so much, even if it's just a correlation for now?
This quote from the researchers themselves really says it all. We're in the middle of a global mental health crisis. So finding any potential ways to help prevent these issues, especially things that are simple and accessible, is a really, really big deal.
So where does that leave us? Look, this study isn't saying that coffee is some kind of magic bullet, but it does give us a really powerful clue. In this huge ongoing search for ways to protect our well-being, could it be that one small part of the answer has been sitting right there in our coffee cup all along? It's definitely something to think about.